Okay, guys, I'm gonna do a little video here on with some information on Jessica Chambers. This is the critical pieces found at the crime scene. The shocking mystery of the death of Jessica Chambers, the Mississippi teenager who was found by first responders on a highway with burns on more than 93% of her body on December 6, 2014, is about to be revisited in a trial this past September. And during Oxygen's unspeakable crime, the killing of Jessica Chambers, you can find that actually on YouTube. I'll put the link below if I can find it to you guys if you want to watch that. That video? You can. Jessica Chambers' horrific death rocked the nation. A former cheerleader, Chambers had ambitions of becoming a nurse. Rumors that she sold marijuana and dated gang members surged in the aftermath of her death, when Chambers' life became subject to just as much intense scrutiny as the mystery of her death, which occurred at a hospital in Memphis, Tennessee, an hour or so away from Cortland. But nobody really knows what happened that fateful night. In October 2017 trial against Quinton Tellis, no verdict was reached. Many things have happened since that mistrial, but the crime scene, described as chaotic and a madhouse, still has some crucial bits of evidence that may prove useful in the upcoming retrial. Jessica herself, perhaps surprisingly, the murder victim, was able to provide substantial evidence in her last moments alive. Former Cortland volunteer fire chief Cole Haley recalled how Chambers was found standing in the road with the car burning beside her. Couldn't speak clearly for a sickening reason. The inside of her mouth was charred black. I was face to face with her and you could barely understand her, said Haley. Her face was fried out like she had stuck it in a light socket, and she had black all over her face. Her body was severely burned, but in her last moments, Chambers was able to name someone as belabored as her speech may have been. Eric set me on fire, she reportedly said to first responders on the scene when asked what happened. Who did this to you? Asked Daniel Cole, director of emergency operations in the county. Eric, she said. The 19-year-old, who did not give a last name or answer other questions, one responder said it could have been Derek, but most heard Eric. All she could say was that she felt cold. Daniel Cole, director of Panola County MS Emergency Operations, read part of his report out while being cross-examined at trial. That said, he saw a suspicious person, an older black male, noting the tag number. Volunteer firefighter Brandy Davis testified during the trial that he also heard the name Eric when he asked Chambers who burned her. He also said that he saw a suspicious person in the area. While he was not able to make contact with this person, he did not note the license plate number, according to affiliates in Memphis. Will Turner, another firefighter, said the black man approached him, and though he asked the man to leave several times, the man just gave him a blank stare. He asked Davis to note the tag number, presumably off the car. Who was this mysterious person? Were they an unwitting witness or somehow tied to the fatal burning? Investigators found burned items at the crime scene, including parts of a cell phone. Prosecutors later claimed that it contained evidence showing that Chambers had reportedly refused Tellis for sex over text. Panola County Sheriff's Lieutenant Eric Dixon confirmed in his testimony that he found a phone belonging to Chambers and some burnt clothing. He also said he found a lighter that was so rusty it could not be sent to the crime lab. A cigarette butt that they thought belonged to a firefighter. Car keys. While her keys were missing the night Jessica Chambers was found near her burning car, they would later be found down the route a few hundred yards away from the crime scene also Heron Road. Jerry King testified that he found the keys in a ditch near his house 2 days after the death, attached to a pig string and Chambers' auto repair tag. When his girlfriend encouraged him to call in, he had brought them home because they were shiny. The responsive deputy asked him to place it where he found them and took photos. Logically, someone might have taken the keys from the crime scene to later disregard them, but who? Gasoline on Jessica's clothing. An expert testified that they detected gasoline on a piece of clothing from the crime scene, but wasn't able to detect the same substance on other items submitted to forensic analysis. Why wasn't gasoline also detected on the other items from the scene? How much gasoline would one need to set an entire car on fire, and where did the gasoline come from? The answers to these questions may be crucial to figuring out how the fire started. Okay, Crime Time is your destination for breaking news, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so they're not really, they really don't know, like, where this all happened. It's freaking crazy. When emergency workers found Jessica Chambers stumbling on the side of the road with more than 93% of her body burned, she told them something that would come to dominate the case. Eric did it. A trial, 8 first responders testified she said wasn't sure if it was Eric or Derek multiple times before she died, but the man prosecutors believe her is named either Eric nor Derek. His name is Quinton Tellis. The case will be looked at anew in the upcoming series, which I told you I'll link below. During Tellis' murder trial last year, prosecutors tried to sow doubt over whether Chambers' words could be trusted since she was suffering such severe medical trauma. The first trial ended a mistrial, and now prosecutors plan to try Tellis for crime again. This time, use a speech pathologist to help bolster the case to get a sense of how speech pathology might influence a second trial. Before we dive into speech pathology, here are the details you need to know, which we went over. Since the first trial, prosecutor John Chapman has been accused of pursuing a man facing a capital murder trial. Testified that Chambers referred to Tellis as Eric, but no evidence that Chambers ever referred to Tellis by anything other than name has surfaced. At trial, his attorney Darla Parmel said Eric is not on trial today, but ladies and gentlemen, he should be. The bar for determining whether it's possible to be sure of a person's meaning when they're experiencing medical trauma is very high, according to Joanne Lasker, a professional of speech pathology at Emerson College. Based on the facts she knows of this case, she said it is not possible to say with certainty that Chambers meant to say Eric did it. There are 3 elements, Lasker said, to evaluating what Chambers said that night. With cognition, we're trying to determine whether her thoughts were coherent. We need to know if she has the ability to call up the words she wants to use. Then speech-wise, the question of can she physically articulate the words. From a conjugal prospect, it seems that Chambers was at least somewhat coherent. We know this because she was able to identify herself, recognize someone on the scene, and say that her attacker was black. But for Lasker, there's not enough to prove she definitely understood the question of who attacked her. As for language, Lasker said that evidence also lacking. Patients experience child will often say one word when they actually mean another. She said repeating words, as Chambers did with Eric, can also be a sign of mental deterioration. To say with any certainty whether Chambers meant to say Eric, a speech pathologist would need to be on the scene and ask several other questions to evaluate her cognitive and language ability. The fact that she repeatedly answered Eric when asked who attacked her adds maybe a little bit of credence to the idea that Chambers was cognitively and linguistically able to answer the question. Lasker said, but patients repeating a word can also be a sign of mental deterioration called persevering, she pointed out. When it comes to the third criteria of speech, Lasker is fairly certain Chambers would have had the physical ability to say Eric, since Chambers had already told first responders her name was Jessica Chambers. And answered questions, Lasker concludes Chambers was indeed saying Eric and not another word or name, as prosecutors previously argued. Prosecutor John Chapman posted during the last trial that maybe Chambers was trying to say Tellis, but could not make the T sound. I'm not saying it's impossible. That's a stretch. Yeah, that's really a big stretch, people. Adam Birchwood, a professional of computer science at New York University, agrees that Chambers likely had physical ability to say the name Eric. All of the word Eric is pronounced inside the vocal tract and not with the lips. If all of the burning was outside of her body, she would have pursued. She would be able to say the name if she wanted to. Her ability to say her own name backed up the assertion, he said. An autopsy of Chambers found that she suffered from soot inhalation, but it did not indicate internal thermal injuries. She did, however, suffer injuries her tongue and mouth. While Lasker believes it's impossible to be certain that Chambers actually understood the question meant to say Eric, she equally unprepared to deny that Chambers said exactly what she meant. It's a really high bar to make a definite judgment about anyone's statement. We really need a lot of information. But Lasker added that the bar for providing Tellis guilt should be just as high. If you're going to convict somebody of murder, you have to be absolutely certain. Yes, beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay? Now, all I'm saying is, if she said her own name, and she said Eric more than once, I think the person's name is Eric. Okay? How Quinton could be mistaken for Eric is beyond me, people. I'm sorry. I don't quite understand what they're trying to say here. How you even get Quintus from Eric. The trial of Quinton Tellis, accused of burning 19-year-old Chambers alive in the small town of Mississippi, ended in a hung jury last fall because it makes no fucking sense. But a new filing may derail the retrial for the foreseeable future. Now let's see if it says anything. Blah, blah, blah. Quinton Tellis, is that referred to? No, I don't believe that. Okay. So I don't understand how they're trying him a second time. If I can't. I have no idea, like, how they got Quinton Tellis from. I can't deal with it. It, like, makes no sense to me. And I'm curious to see what you guys think about this. Now they're saying she looked like a zombie. She was mentally in a shock and trance, and that she looked like a zombie when she told them a man named Eric set her on fire. Yet prosecutors began making their case Wednesday as to why 20-year-old Quinton Tellis and not a man named Eric is responsible for Chambers' horrific murder. Tellis has pleaded not guilty. On the second day of trial, Mississippi court jurors heard the parade of first responders, many of whom were last to speak with Chambers. She fell unconscious December 6th. Those who spoke said Eric set me on fire several times. It was a very chaotic scene, a lot of noise. And they're saying that Jessica didn't mention any other names but the name Eric. Her statements that Eric did it, Eric set me on fire, were her words. And they asked her who she was, and she said Jessica. She stated multiple times, Eric set me on fire. Okay, so how many times has somebody got to say that Eric set me on fire before they start looking for somebody named Eric? Okay? That's all I'm saying. I asked her again, baby girl, who did this? And she replied, Eric. How many fucking times are they gonna ask a dying person who did this? Like, are you fucking serious? Oh, I fucking can't, people. There was a series of text messages between the two, even on the day she died, where he's asking for sex, she said. Prosecutor defense argued that Chambers herself named someone other than the defendant before she died. Okay. So, you know what? Even if Quinton Tellis, who was wiping tears away from his eyes after making contact with his family in the courtroom, Tellis has pleaded not guilty. Let me see what this says about his text message. You will see a text message between the two where Quinton is constantly adjusting for sex and she's constantly turning him down. There was a series of text messages between the two, even on the day she died, where he's asking her for sex. He then pointed to the crime scene. Blah, 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 blah. Usually tucked his chamber after killing her and then called his girlfriend. Chambers said that was an attempt to create a false alibi. Tellis also claimed he was with a friend that night of Chambers. However, the friend told police he didn't see Tellis that night. The fact that he wasn't even in the state. And she, once again, she kept saying, Eric set me on fire. My whole thing is this, okay? Even if they were texting back and forth, how does that make somebody the person who burned her? Even if she was turning him down, does that mean that he's a killer? I don't know. That's really strange. Really strange. Okay, supposedly he's claiming that her and him had sex at one point in a car. Blah, 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 blah. There was a series of text messages between the two, even on the day that she died. He was asking for sex, blah, blah, blah. During the trial, Chambers' friend Keisha Meyer testified that the three had ridden around the morning on the day Chambers was set on fire. Chambers and Meyer smoked marijuana. Tellis did not, according to Meyer's testimony. Bullen testified the first trial that Tellis admitted to him that he had deleted Chambers' contact information text from his phone soon after she died, but he didn't ask why. But legal analyst Beth had the chance to ask Tellis and depicted unspeakable crime documentaries. I wasn't scared, but after I found out who it was who died there, I just deleted contact with her, said Tellis, because I didn't want to have any deceased person on my phone with a number on my phone that's just going to be no longer used. What's the nature of their text relationships? Chambers had asked Tellis for $6 for food, and Tellis agreed to meet her to give her the money. On the day she was burned, Chambers texted Tellis at 9:02 a.m. to tell him she just woke up, and he responded a few minutes later that he had too. Tellis texted Chambers, I'm ready. Right after that, she pulled into the M&M gas station. She captured on surveillance video leaving M&M minutes later, presumably to pick up Tellis. They allegedly picked up Keisha Myers afterwards, and the two smoked marijuana. Chambers dropped Tellis off at 10:49 a.m. Around 2 p.m., Tellis began texting Chambers asking for some loving and saying, I need you, bae. The prosecution alleged this was the fourth time in 4 days he asked for sex, so that's what men do. I'm horny, can I have someone come lay with me? Which Chambers repeatedly down, called Tezzy crazy and wild, and said she was tired from working. Okay, well, maybe that was their relationship. Sometimes she wanted to have sex, sometimes she didn't. The passenger in Chambers' car was burned, pushed back, similar to Tellis had described having sex in her car. prosecutors argue that it was evidence that the two had sex, or at least attempted to have sex on the tragic night. Okay, so Tellis continues to maintain his innocence. Okay, so basically, if they had sex and she called him and asked for money on numerous times, I'm thinking, that was just how they did things. It's not like people don't have casual sex. This might have been a casual sex thing. Maybe it wasn't like a, where she wanted to have sex 24/7 with him. So, I mean, I don't see what the fucking issue is with that. If she's saying Eric did it, she's not saying Quinton did it. So, let me see what the updates are here. I'm just checking to see what they're saying here. Yeah, there's not much. Yeah, it ended in a second mistrial. And you know what? I'm sorry. I'm really sorry to say that the fact that more than one person heard her say Eric did it, this is just totally telling me that that this dude, his name is not Eric, and I mean, for Christ's sake, anybody could fucking figure that out. That's not, that's not something that a rocket scientist figures out, people. I mean, if somebody says this person did it, you know what I'm saying? And they're going after somebody completely, with a completely different name. I mean, I'm confused as to how this even, because they were together and because they sometimes had sex, doesn't really mean that he's a murderer because he couldn't get sex. He obviously had a girlfriend also, so like, I think he could have got sex either way. So I don't really think that he killed her over sex. That would, and if she could say Jessica Chambers, I'm pretty sure she can say Quinton Tellis. They're both pretty articulate words, so I think she would have been able to handle the Quinton Tellis thing. So now who's Eric? I don't know. I don't know who Eric is. Have they even pursued this avenue with a person named Eric? Have they even looked into anybody named Eric? You know what I'm saying? Or did they just pick the first black man that she was sleeping with and consider that the person who killed her? You got to remember, this is down south, people. Down south, they're still stuck, in the slavery days. So, I mean, they could just possibly be prosecuting him just because he was sleeping with a white woman. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, I mean, let's look at this logically. I don't think that it takes a rocket scientist to grasp that, unfortunately, they noticed she was sleeping with a black person or talking to a black man, and they went after him because of that fact. Did he kill her? I don't know. I think that she would have said his name had he killed her. So I'm at a crossroads right now, guys, as far as this case is concerned. Man, I'm just getting the feeling that this is down south, like I said, and they basically, they were ready to hang the black man, lynch the black man in the fucking forest somewhere on a tree, like they used to do back in the day. Like, you know what I'm saying? These people are still stuck. In that time period, there's still, so much racism, especially down south still. So, I mean, we need to take that into consideration when looking at this case. It's sad to say, guys, but I gotta look at this logically. I gotta look at this from a, a forensic standpoint, and I also have to look at it from a standpoint of where she was from and how they think, and what could have led up to them thinking it was him. So, I'm going to stick to that for now, guys, because I seriously think that's, because I'm, looking at this shit, and it says, Jessica Chambers, 19, foolish white girl burned alive by a criminal, and then it says, look at this brutal black animal. Like, are you fucking serious? Like, are you fucking serious right now? You see what I mean? Like, totally racist, totally fucking down south backwards ass BS. Like, you think that shit's gone. It's really not. It's not. It's not, guys. It's not gone. The racism, all that kind of shit down south, that shit ain't gone. That they still think like that, and it's fucking sad. It really is sad. Well, this is the second mistrial, so I do not think that they're going to be retrying this case. I think they should start looking for somebody named Eric, which that person's probably gone by now. If there is an Eric. I don't, you know what I'm saying? I don't know, guys. Just take everything I said into consideration. Leave your comments below. Let me know what you think. And that's it. I shall see you next time. Okay, guys. I'm going to do a little video here with some information on Jessica Chambers. This is the critical pieces found at the crime scene. The shocking mystery of the death of Jessica Chambers, the Mississippi teenager who was found by first responders on a highway with burns on more than 93% of her body on December 6, 2014, is about to be revisited in a trial this past September. and during Oxygen's unspeakable crime, the killing of Jessica Chambers. You can find that actually on YouTube. I'll put the